Forget everything you know about luxury mansions, because many homes in the Japanese Imperial family's collection of residences make Buckingham Palace look like a starter house, blending thousand-year-old traditions with architectural mastery that would humble modern designers. Indeed, from hidden tea rooms that have hosted ancient ceremonies for centuries to gardens so perfect they seem painted by the gods themselves, these aren't just mansions. They're living museums where the world's oldest royal dynasty maintains traditions that predate most countries. In today's episode of Old Money Mansions, join us as we welcome you on a tour of Japan's imperial residences, where every pebble has purpose and even the lightning rods tell stories of power. First, if you're wondering where Japan's emperor keeps his royal slippers, look no further than the heart of Tokyo, where an architectural masterpiece stands as proudly as a samurai warrior in full armor. You see, the Tokyo Imperial Palace isn't just any old residence. It's the epitome of nobility meets old tradition, and it's absolutely magnificent. Picture this, a sprawling complex rising from the historic grounds of Edo Castle, where Japan's imperial family has managed to create something rather extraordinary. Completed in 1968, yes, relatively recent for a royal pad, this palace pulls off what many architects only dream of, seamlessly blending traditional Japanese aesthetics with modern design elements. It's like watching a master chef combine wasabi with cream cheese. It shouldn't work, but somehow it does, brilliantly. The palace's architectural prowess is nothing short of spectacular, and those massive roofs, commanding pillars and robust beams, aren't just for show. They're a masterclass in Japanese architectural tradition. Now, let's talk about the Matsuno-to, shall we? This lightning tower, built with donations from the Japanese people, stands as a symbol of the unique relationship between the imperial family and their subjects. It's rather touching, actually. How many monarchs can say their lightning rod was a gift from their people? But this isn't just any royal residence. The complex is a carefully orchestrated symphony of buildings, each playing its vital role. There's the imperial residence, where the emperor and empress actually live. We only assume they have a rather nice breakfast nook. And the main palace used for ceremonies. The Seiden and its 6 wings, including the rather grandly named Homei-den, Rensui, and Chowa-den, form the heart of this architectural masterpiece. And here's a fascinating detail. They primarily used materials sourced from within Japan. Talk about keeping it local. And the security, well, they've certainly got that covered. Wide moats and thick stone walls surround the complex, remnants from its days as Edo Castle. It's medieval meets modern, and it works brilliantly. But they're not completely shutting out the commoners. The East Gardens, part of the former castle's grounds, are open to the public. How democratic. The palace isn't just about looking pretty, though. It's the beating heart of Japan's ceremonial life. Important state functions, royal ceremonies, and the famous New Year's greeting all happen here. It's where foreign ambassadors present their credentials, and where the emperor performs ancient Shinto rituals throughout the year. In essence, it's where tradition meets duty in the most elegant way possible. Perhaps most remarkably, this palace manages to create a peaceful oasis in the midst of Tokyo's concrete jungle. Surrounded by modern skyscrapers, it stands as a tranquil reminder of Japan's rich heritage, a place where time seems to stand still, even as the world rushes by at bullet train speed. It's not just preserving the past, it's bridging it with the present, ensuring that the world's oldest hereditary monarchy remains relevant in our fast-paced modern world. If Tokyo's Imperial Palace is Japan's crown jewel, then the Kyoto Imperial Palace is its vintage diamond, the one with the really good stories. For over 500 years, from 1331 until 1869, this was where Japan's emperors woke up every morning, presumably wondering what divine matters needed attending to that day. That is, until the Meiji Restoration came along and everyone packed their royal belongings for Tokyo, the medieval equivalent of moving from a classic mansion to a sleek penthouse. But oh, what a mansion it is. Nestled within the sprawling Kyoto Imperial Park, this architectural masterpiece is what happens when you blend Heian period sophistication with Chinese Tang dynasty flair. It's like having a heritage-listed fusion restaurant, only instead of food, you're serving up centuries of imperial history. At the heart of this grand complex stands the Shishinden, or Hall for State Ceremonies. And believe me, they didn't do things by halves here. This is where Emperors Taisho and Showa had their enthronement ceremonies, making it essentially Japan's original coronation cathedral. The architecture is a sight to behold, with a gabled and hipped roof whose eaves extend so far beyond the walls, they needed something called Tokyo, fancy bracket systems, to hold them up. And let's talk about the garden. White gravel complemented by two symbolic trees, a cherry tree on one side and a Tachibana orange tree on the other. It's minimal, it's meaningful, it's magnificent. Then there's the Seiryoden, which served as the emperor's actual living quarters. Designed in the Shinden Zukuri style, it's all about symmetry and space. Think of it as the medieval Japanese version of Feng Shui, but with imperial authority. Add to that the Kogasho, or courtroom, Ogakumonjo, the imperial study, and various residences for the empress and high-ranking officials, and you've got yourself a proper royal compound. The gates alone tell a story. The Kenraiman, with its understated cypress wood roof and unpainted wooden pillars, welcomed foreign dignitaries, though one imagines they were too busy being awestruck to notice they were walking through the diplomatic entrance. The inner Jomimon gate, painted in bold vermilion and topped with tiles, leads to the Shishinden, a literal gateway to power. Life here wasn't all about architecture and aesthetics, though. The palace was a hub of ritual and ceremony, where the emperor himself performed the grand service, delivering imperial proclamations and praying for the nation's peace and prosperity. These weren't your average prayer meetings. These ceremonies, known as Kyuchu Saishi, were the spiritual backbone of imperial authority. Even after Tokyo became the new imperial headquarters, Kyoto's palace kept its ceremonial street cred. The Kyoto Imperial Palace Tea Party became the hot ticket for state guests and nobles, while the Oikeniwa and Gonate Gardens, with their perfectly placed ponds and bridges, continued to showcase what Heian period landscape designers could do with water and stone. Today, it stands as both a living museum and a masterclass in Japanese imperial architecture. It's where ancient court life meets modern tourism, where every building, garden and gate tells a story of power, tradition and impeccable taste. Not bad for a royal hand-me-down, wouldn't you say? If the Tokyo and Kyoto imperial palaces are Japan's traditional treasures, then the Akasaka Palace is its grand experiment in architectural fusion, and what a gloriously successful experiment it turned out to be. Built between 1899 and 1909, this magnificent structure proves that when Japan decides to go Western, it doesn't just dip its toe in the water, it dives in with perfect form. Under the watchful eye of Dr. Tokuma Katayama, who learned his craft from British architect Josiah Conder, no less, this neo-Baroque masterpiece emerged as Japan's answer to Buckingham Palace. Though, between you and me, some might say they've outdone their inspiration. Picture 15,000 square meters of reinforced brick and stone spread across 3 floors, one below ground, for those who like to count, all executed with the kind of precision that would make a Swiss watchmaker jealous. Originally designed as the Crown Prince's residence, or Togu Gosho if you're feeling fancy, this palace proved to be more than just a pretty facade. It became a genuine lifesaver for Crown Prince Hirohito, later Emperor Showa, and Princess Nobuko Kuninomiya when the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923 decided to remodel their intended residence, and not in a good way. The royal couple called this place home until 1928, even welcoming their first 2 daughters here, including Princess Shigeko. Talk about making the best of an unfortunate situation. The estate itself is nothing to sneeze at. 120,000 square meters of prime Tokyo real estate, featuring gardens that would make any landscape architect weep with joy. The piece de resistance is a pond specifically designed to reflect light into the main banquet room. Now that's what I call natural lighting with a royal twist. But like any good drama, the palace's story took an unexpected turn after World War II. From royal residence to government asset, it played host to various tenants, including the National Diet Library. Then came the grand makeover of 1968 to 1974, led by the dynamic duo of Togo Murano and Yoshiro Taniguchi, transforming this imperial gem into what we now know as the State Guest House. And what a guest house it is. We're talking about the kind of place that's hosted everyone from US President Gerald Ford to our Queen Elizabeth II, not to mention being the swanky venue for G7 summit meetings. It's where East meets West in the most diplomatic way possible, serving as Japan's architectural ambassador to the world. In 2009, exactly a century after its completion, the palace received the ultimate seal of approval, designation as a national treasure of Japan. Not bad for a building that started life as an architectural experiment. Today, it stands as a testament to Japan's remarkable ability to take foreign influences and transform them into something uniquely Japanese. The Akasaka Palace isn't just a building, it's a symbol of Japan's journey from isolation to international power player, all wrapped up in neo-Baroque splendor with a distinctly Japanese twist. In the grand theater of diplomatic relations, this palace plays its role to perfection, proving that sometimes the best way to bridge cultures is with a healthy dose of architectural brilliance. When you're running the world's oldest hereditary monarchy, even emperors need a place to kick off their imperial sandals and relax. Enter Japan's collection of imperial villas, the royal equivalent of holiday homes, only with significantly better gardens and a dash more historical significance than your average weekend getaway. Let's start with the Nasu Imperial Villa, completed in 1926 with a fashionably late addition in 1935. Nestled in Tochigi Prefecture, like a precious stone in a perfect setting, this summer retreat proves that Emperor Showa had impeccable taste in vacation spots. The architects managed to pull off something rather clever here, blending traditional Japanese style with modern influences in a way that makes you wonder why anyone builds any other way. The imperial family typically graces this pastoral paradise during August and September, presumably when Tokyo's summer heat becomes a bit too much for even divine beings to bear. In a rather magnanimous gesture, 2008 saw approximately 560 hectares of the villa's grounds transformed into the Nasu Heisei no Mori forest and opened to the public. It's like having your neighbor invite you to enjoy their garden, except your neighbor happens to be the Emperor of Japan. Talk about keeping up with the Joneses. Then there's the Hayama Imperial Villa in Kanagawa Prefecture, acquired in 1894. Think of it as the royal family's seaside escape. Emperor Taisho was particularly fond of this one, using it as a retreat from both his illnesses and the pressures of imperial duties. Sadly, it was here that he bid farewell to the mortal realm in December 1926. His son, Emperor Showa, clearly inherited his father's appreciation for the place, but added his own scholarly twist, establishing a marine biology laboratory on the grounds. Because why simply admire the sea when you can study it? The villa's story took a rather dramatic turn in 1971 when it fell victim to arson, but like any good phoenix, it rose from the ashes in 1981 as a one-story structure with Western architectural influences. Think of it as Japan's architectural history of modernization, told in brick and mortar. But if you really want to see Japanese imperial architecture showing off, look no further than the Katsura Imperial Villa in Kyoto. This isn't just a building, it's a masterclass in Japanese design philosophy. The complex features several tea houses, each positioned with the kind of precision that would make a Swiss watchmaker envious, offering views that change with every step. These aren't your average garden sheds. They're architectural poems written in wood and paper, each embodying the refined aesthetics of the tea ceremony. The gardens of Katsura deserve their own round of applause. Centered around a pond that would make any water feature look positively pedestrian, they feature winding pathways and strategically placed rocks and plants that create what can only be described as nature's perfect theatre. This is wabi-sabi philosophy in action, finding beauty in simplicity and the natural flow of life, a concept that apparently resonates quite well with imperial sensibilities. Each of these villas serves as more than just a luxury retreat. They're living museums where imperial traditions are preserved and nature is revered. They represent the delicate balance between the imperial family's private life and their public role as guardians of Japanese culture. After all, even those tasked with preserving centuries of tradition need somewhere to contemplate their heritage, preferably somewhere with an excellent view and impeccable gardens. And now, we'd love to see you in the comments. Which of these royal residences is your favorite? We can't wait to hear your thoughts. And thanks for joining us for another episode of Old Money Mansions. Cheers, until next time.